Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the March 11th meeting of your Aitkin City Council. If you would, at this time, please rise for the invocation and pledge. Our invocation is going to be by Councilwoman Leslie Price, and I'll ask Chief Branco to come up with the pledge. Councilwoman Price.
For those who care to, please bow your heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we pause to give thanks to you. Thank you for this day, oh dear God. Thank you for life, health, and strength. Thank you for our families. Thank you for our volunteers. But most of all, dear Father, thank you for protecting us, protecting our public safety officers, protecting our staff. Dear Father, we gather here in these chambers every 2 weeks to discuss the business of our city. We ask that you go with each of us, guide our minds and our hearts in every way, that whatever we do, whatever we decide, may be in the best interest of our city, short and long term. We will always, dear Father, always, no matter what the outcome, give you the thanks and give you the glory. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Chief Branco, good evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the City Council, we want to thank everyone for coming out, participating in your government. I'd like to read the guidelines for our meetings. Meetings are public forums in which many opinions are expressed and the business of the city must be conducted. As such, disciplined, honorable, and professional decorum is paramount. Courteous and respectful communication is expected. During public hearings, all questions and statements from the public shall be directed to the chair. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and I will certainly recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. In order to allow an opportunity for everyone who wishes to address council, speakers should limit their comments to the subject being discussed. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to address an issue and may only address an issue once unless questions from council are posed to the speaker. And with that, I would like to recognize our Mayor Pro Tem for additions and deletions to the agenda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor and Council, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? With there being none, I make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gregory, all those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. The minutes were distributed to council members for their review before our meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
I second.
Thank you, Councilman Gerardo. Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item 2, old business. Number 1 under old business is approval of appointments and discussion of appointees to various city boards, commissions, and committees. And I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Stuart Bedenbaugh, for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have 4 appointments for council consideration this evening. First, we have for the Election Commission, Mrs. Rebecca Vignier, to be reappointed to a term that would expire in August 2025. Election commissioners are appointed for 6-year terms. Councilwoman Diggs recommends the reappointment of John Breck to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a term that would expire March 14th, 2020. Councilman Gerardo has recommended the appointment of Shan Carmen to the Equine Committee for a term that would expire January 28th, 2020, and Councilman Waltz. So those are the appointments. And also, Councilman Waltz had asked that he and I had a good discussion with some former or members of the old ad hoc committee, and I would like to maybe get the sense of council. There's a lot of equestrian disciplines in the community that we right now, I think, have the ordinance set to where there's 7 appointments. one per council member, considering increasing the membership to 14 because of the variety of disciplines. I don't believe in the conversations that I've had, and also Councilman Waltz, that there is a number of people interested in serving for this advisory committee.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I mean, considering all the different disciplines that there are and medical things and other things, this needs to be a bigger committee. I have a list of people that the old ad hoc committee would like to see stay on, which I'll be glad to share with everybody. But I think we need to take this from 7 to 14 and get this going, because they're very interested in it right now. I mean, they're interested in becoming a more active group.
Mm-hmm.
So what we could do is, for consideration, have an ordinance to discuss with council at a future meeting as early as March 25th. And it would be a 2-reading ordinance. Essentially, it would increase the membership to 14 from 7, and each council member would have 2 appointments. And if that's the wish of council, we could execute or potentially get the ordinance passed, and then have a committee that probably would represent the sort of entire universe of the equestrian community here.
I would echo Councilman Waltz's recommendations on this and commend them. Actually, I think it's you're right. As a growing community, we see, even in our events, we see so many more disciplines starting to be showcased. I think it certainly is appropriate. I would almost like to see staff come forward with a slate for council to consider, though, because these.
I'll get that off to Stuart. He can forward it out to everybody.
Because this is an important committee. They have a lot of work right now that's very relevant, and it would be perhaps helpful if we had a slate of people who are interested in serving also, that we could consider at one time.
Sure, we'll be glad to. And I know right now we have one member, Councilman DeWar, appointed a member that council approved recently, and Councilman Jerido has Shan Carmen before you tonight.
Okay.
Who is the chair of this?
There is no chair. They have not had a quorum yet to meet, so no chair has been appointed. The chair of the ad hoc committee was Lucy Knowles. However, now that this is a formal committee of city council, she is currently a member of the design review board. So for the dual office holding provision, she cannot serve on both, and I believe at this point she had expressed the preference to stay as a standing committee member of the design review board.
Right. And one other part of this committee that they brought to our attention was it might be good to have a couple of ad hoc non-voting members, like a veterinarian and all, to give information to them, but wouldn't be a voting member, so they would appoint some ad hoc members too.
It wouldn't be bad. I don't know how we could work it out, but it wouldn't be bad to have an odd number also.
Absolutely, we could. That would not be a problem. We could come up with an option.
So they don't know when and where they meet, or?
Until we get at least a quorum, either 4 under the current composition or 8+ for the other. They really, I guess they could meet, but they couldn't really make any action items or decisions.
Okay.
Mr. Beam, I'll bring that forward to us at our next meeting, if you would.
We will. We'll bring this forward to the March 25th meeting.
So
One other thing, now that they're a standing committee, we will be able to task them with certain things to do for the equine committee. So that's something else we need to be thinking about when we form this committee. How do we task them to do things?
And I know Councilman Waltz represents the horse district, and he and I have had several good conversations about some issues that I think would be good for them to start with and offer some advice and recommendations for.
All right. Mr. Beambo, would you mind reviewing the names that we're considering tonight for?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be glad to. The first one is the entirety of council recommending Rebecca Vignier be reappointed to the Election Commission for a term to expire August of 2025. Councilwoman Diggs recommends the reappointment of John Breck to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Councilman Ed Gerardo recommends the appointment of Shan Carmen, and and also Councilwoman Diggs recommends Bill Goodson's reappointment to the Senior Commission.
All right, is there a motion for consideration for these nominations?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Gregory, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Walls. All those in favor of these nominations, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Are there any names to be considered at our next meeting? Very good, thank you. Moving down to item number 2 under old business, this is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to amend the involuntary towing franchise ordinance towing fees by title, an ordinance amending section 46-26311 and section 46-26411 of the Aiken City Code regarding charges and storage fees for involuntary towing within the city of Aiken. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you. In September 2013, council approved the current involuntary towing franchise agreement, and we are now bringing, after a meeting last fall between public safety representatives and representatives of some towing companies on our rotation, they wanted to discuss the involuntary towing fees, and it was recommended that the city can strongly consider adopting the South Carolina Department of Public Safety's aka Highway Patrol's yearly record rotation fee schedule. The Sheriff's Department currently uses that. Since the first reading, we have added language to the ordinance to clarify that the new rates apply for heavy-duty towing as well as conventional towing. And Lieutenant Hamill, I want to express my appreciation to him for noting that this does include heavy-duty towing rates as well as services as well as conventional towing services. And the reason for this recommendation to council tonight is the towing services and record companies, there is increased cost to them for insurance and certifications, and we have before you tonight second reading of this item to have our rates be increased and to also use the South Carolina Department of Public Safety's fee schedule.
All right, thank you, Mr. Biedenbaum. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from council? All those in favor of second reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 3 under old business. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance for a budget adjustment for the Small Alley project. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Gerardo. Comments from staff?
Thank you. The staff met with ADDA, the Aiken Downtown Development Association, recently to about obtaining or making some small improvements to the small alley. It's located between the alley and Park Avenue, between Tailgate Tavern and the Brew Pub on the northern end, and the southern end being between Palmetto Package Shop and Nandina. This would cost up to no more than $25,000 and be paid for out of hospitality tax funds. And since these were not in the budget for fiscal year 18-19, it does require a budget adjustment. And due to the fact that our stormwater, The historic railroad cut project was completed well under budget. We've got funding to just make the budget transfer, and council approved this ordinance on first reading at the February 11th meeting, and it is before you tonight for second and final reading.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bebo. Any comments from the audience? Comments or questions from council?
I just want to make a comment. This will continue, if this is passed, to make the improvements that we continue to look for in our downtown area. So it's a plus for us to have this done.
Thank you. And I think you want to make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just for the record, wanted to make sure the record was clear that Councilmember Diggs recused herself from these discussions. She is a member of the board of the Aitkin Downtown Development Association, and so it was necessary for her to recuse herself from this vote.
Very good.
I've got a couple questions.
Yes, sir. Ms. Waltz.
Who's got the final plan on this?
The plan was drawn up by the plan which staff has looked at was drawn up by the Aitkin Downtown Development Association.
And there's a couple businesses in here through this walkway that their employees come out and clean mops and smoke and all kinds of stuff. Are we going to clean that up somehow?
Yes, that is going to be cleaned up, and one of the roles that the Downtown Development Association plays is they do that interfacing with the businesses, and they will work with city staff to ensure that it's presented in an appropriate manner, and that the staff is able, the staff at these venues are made aware that this is a public walkway, and we're going to be making some upgrades for the members of the public. So by working with the business owners, we'll expect that the staff will comply.
Okay, who's going to enforce it?
Well, it is, I think it will initially be a voluntary type enforcement, but ultimately, we have had very good success. One of the beauties of this relationship is we meet with the ADDA, with the business owners, and this is something that they get behind. And to date, we've been very successful in self-policing the various enterprises and endeavors that we've done at the in the alley specifically, and I expect this to be more of the same.
One last question or point. We provide a lot of great spaces for people to eat outside.
Yes.
The alley being one of them. A little side question. What do we have to get these places cleaned up? Particularly the brick and all, when people spill stuff and everything else, they should be cleaned at some time.
Yes, we do periodically have the areas, especially before like the Triple Crown, this upcoming Triple Crown and Master season, and during the year have it cleaned. One of the things we are very careful about is because of the aggregate that's in the brickwork, we have to be very careful that we don't disturb that because of the integrity of the bricks. But we do use, there is recommended cleaners that can be used for the brickwork, and the cement is pressure washed periodically.
And so we're taking the cost of that on?
Yes, to date it's been the city, correct.
Okay. Right. Well, I think it's a good project, and they've certainly done a good job, so I
In the short
feel good
period.
about it.
It's clear that this stuff needs to get addressed. Help me understand, we are decreasing park and row improvement and, no, increasing that and decreasing stormwater for 25,000?
That is out of the hospitality tax fund. That is correct. And the reason is, in the budget that year we're currently in, we funded in the hospitality tax fund our FEMA grant match for the historic railroad cut. We shored that up after the ice storm. There was significant erosion. So we received a FEMA grant in excess of over $1 million that required a match. And the project came in under the budgeted amount, so we are just having to do an accounting for that and transferring the funds from the stormwater line item in hospitality tax to the park and right-of-way improvement account.
Gotcha. And, but the cost of this project is 15,000.
That's correct, but there's also some additional work that we're going to be doing in the parkways, in the parkway in front of
Right on Lawrence?
Teague Park.
No.
And then, yeah, there's also work in the parkway in Lawrence that the DRB has approved.
Is that itemized in this agenda item? Because I don't see it unless.
No, it is not itemized in the agenda item.
I think it should be still.
Okay.
Thank you, because we're doing that shift for $25,000. This project is $15,000, and it just kind of leaves.
That's right. There is some work that's being done to, for a bust for Mayor Weeks and for somewhat other.
Or show the adjustment for $15,000 and then a separate adjustment for the parkways and so forth and so on for the rest. It's just, it looks like something's missing if you
Okay.
go through this.
Well, we can, the cover memo specifies that it's for the alley and some improvements in the downtown parkways, but we can certainly make that reflection.
Where am I not seeing that?
It's in the fourth line of the cover memorandum in the second sentence. Improvements made in the downtown parkways, but we can itemize that out.
I don't see it, but if it's in there, it's fine. I just didn't see it. So
Oh,
it's
no
just kind of
problem.
like there were $10,000 missing.
Is staff doing the design on the parkways?
That is, I believe, our staff is doing that work for the, for those, the garden project.
Yeah.
Yes, that is done in-house.
Oh my gosh, I missed that completely. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I don't have my glasses.
All right.
Let me just add too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm pretty accurate. I know that the ADDA staff does periodic walking of the downtown area. When they notice something, they're pretty much on it in terms of calling it to someone's attention, especially knowing how concerned we are based on the appearance and the draw that we're getting with a lot of our folks, a lot more folks coming in, and all these events coming up that we've got planned. So that's why a lot of these changes are being made as well. And some of the things have been pointed out to ADDA to focus on. And they're so receptive in terms of taking that information and developing a plan to do something about it.
I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I mean, I see the examples, which are great, so that'll be fun.
What's the timeline for this project?
Well, if it passes tonight, and Haley can give us some more particulars, some of the work can be implemented very quickly. The mural work is going to require permission from some of the property owners that we would like to do the mural on. And I know last time Haley and I spoke, we had gotten permission from a majority of the property owners, but there was still one, I believe, that we were waiting to get some written permission from.
Have we got that?
I would have to ask Haley if we've
Haley.
gotten permission from the final owner.
Haley, good evening.
Good evening. Everything that is in that proposal, the full plan, that is with all of the approvals that we have already received. I'm finalizing the written permission from every property owner by the end of this week so that we may move forward. There will be, as far as at the end of the packet, there's some additional artwork that's not specific to one of the buildings, more interactive, you'll see with the bubbles. So that would be something that we could put in place with that one piece of property that we're still waiting on. Again, doesn't have to happen, but would be in addition to what you already see in the project. As far as cleaning up the downtown, the ADDA, as far as myself and my assistant, Gail, and then a few other students from Aitkin High. We came down Saturday the 2nd and cleaned that entire alley ourselves. It took us about an hour. Norman Dunnigan was kind enough to put a dumpster there for us to remove everything, any of the debris and broken chairs, and he's also offered to pressure wash that area and prep for this. But as Leslie said, we monitor that area and we will continue to do so. But I felt very very great about us cleaning up that area, having a few volunteers, and it only taken an hour of debris that had been sitting there for years at this point. So,
Thank you, Haley.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You put the plants down at the bottom of Lawrence too, didn't you?
At the bottom of Lawrence,
Where it goes south boundary?
we did not.
Who did those?
The city did.
Good job.
That's a good job, yeah.
Thank you.
I do want to make a comment about that alleyway. I feel like as a city, we struggle to keep the trash part of it picked up. And I think we need to just make a mental note of that, because that is a very transitional area for visitors, for residents, and the trash gets, that has nothing to do with you, Haley, by the way, but the trash gets out of hand, and it'll sit forever, and it'll smell, and we have to make sure and make a better effort to make sure that that is addressed and we stay on top of it, because it is an eyesore on so many levels.
On Sunday morning, people going to church, walking through the alley, walking through those areas,
Yeah.
it needs addressing. Because you can go through there and there's a lot of beer cans, beer bottles and stuff sitting around.
Just kind of pouring out.
And I do want to say, I think it's teaching our community and we've done so much with the alley proper to be proud of that, and we hope with taking care of this small alley, it will give the workers and the employees something to be proud of, to where they won't be throwing their cigarette butts and everything down, but just making them aware that it is an issue. And then maybe in the future, I know the company that's taking care of, well, it's, remind me, Stuart, I apologize, who's taking care of cleaning the alley at this time?
Tri Development.
Tri Development. They are doing a great job since they've been hired, and maybe in the future, if we have a need to do that in some of our other smaller alleys, maybe that's something we can look at too for the future.
Hallie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor on second reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous, with Councilwoman Diggs recusing herself. Moving down old business to item number 4. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance for a budget adjustment for Aiken Senior Youth Center construction. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Comments from staff?
Thank you. In February 2018, council approved using $325,000 in hospitality tax funds to complete the Aiken Senior Youth Center, and we need to make a budget adjustment to account for that. From the accounting standpoint, we are going to transfer the money from the transfer in revenue and increase the building expense account to pay for the portion of the building costs. And you approved this at your last meeting on February 11th, and it is before you for second and final reading this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
What is there left to do at Eustis Park?
Well, I'm going to defer to Joy or Jessica on that, but we have got, I believe, a temp CO on the property, and we do have a ribbon cutting scheduled for April the 24th at 4 p.m.
Good evening.
There is a temporary certificate of occupancy. We've done a punch list with the architect and the contractor and staff, and so they're just trying to finalize small little details. We do have staff trainings over the course of the next 2 weeks where we're learning how to operate the HVAC controls and the AV sound system controls. So all of that's still taking place, but we hope to have staff in there and do some type of like a soft opening first part of April before that grand opening event at the end of the month. Give them a few opportunities to work out any kinks, so to speak.
Have we decided, have y'all talked about rental costs for the
Yes.
facility?
And I believe that's
I already
in,
got people asking me
yes,
about it.
ma'am. I believe it's in the back of
It's
the
in
agenda
our package,
packet
Gail.
today.
In the back of the packet?
Yes,
Been
ma'am.
our package.
Okay, I didn't see that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Jessica? Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor on second reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to new business, item number 1, this is a first reading of an ordinance to rezone property at 131 Silver Bluff Road from limited professional LP to limited business LB. By title, an ordinance amending the zoning of property located at 131 Silver Bluff Road from LP to LB. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Girardeau. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Gregory. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mayor. We have before you first reading of an ordinance to rezone this property from LP Limited Professional to LB Limited Business. The applicant wishes to operate a small eating establishment at the location that would focus primarily on take-home meals, but there would be limited seating. And the current zoning of limited professional does not allow for this for eating establishments, so the rezoning to limited business would allow for this use that the applicant desires. The Planning Commission heard this at their February 12th meeting and unanimously recommended to City Council that the application be recommended to Council for the rezoning from limited professional to limited business. So that is before you at first reading tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from council?
When I saw this, Mr. Mayor, I thought this is something that I need. I don't know about the community, but I need, especially when I saw the soup. And I'm a soup person sometimes, actually most of the time. I'm going to assume that the Stellars are here.
They are.
Can you come forward for just a minute? Just tell us a little bit about what you're offering, if you don't mind.
Sure. So my goal is to bring home-cooked meals back to the table, get some of this fast food off the table a little bit, just to give you more time with your family. So I cook everything fresh. I freeze it, and then it comes with reheating instructions. So all you have to do is just pop it in the oven, freeze up your time at night to do other things, and just give you, home cook. I focus on low carb, but I offer a variety of different options, and I take requests, and we try and have a soup every week, and it's just fun coming up with new ideas, and I just want to bring something new to Aiken. I was born and raised here, and it's exciting.
And you've been open since August?
I started in September, I think it was, on Richland Avenue, just renting, and then my goal was to move to the south side of Aiken.
Okay, and
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
the place that your family owns?
Yes,
that you're
ma'am.
moving to? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
What's the price range for your meals?
So a small casserole starts at $15, and then it goes up to a large, which is $35. And then, like I said, we offer a variety. I try and keep several options in stock, and, it's just, it's exciting. It's been a lot of fun.
And what are your hours?
I am there 11 to 2 from Tuesday through Friday, and then I am open at night for casserole pickup on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, 4 to 6.
Give us some idea of your casseroles.
We have a taco casserole, all low carb. It's made with just some spices, ground beef, and then we do a lot of chicken casseroles. We also have the chicken cordon bleu. We do, anything you want. We do
They do
zucchini lasagna.
meatloaf. I recommend.
Gary Smith has
I
got my
recommend the meatloaf
meatloaf.
highly. It's very good.
Stephanie came and stocked up. Yes,
She
so,
does keto?
yes.
Oh, you do keto?
Yes, ma'am. It's mostly keto, but we do have other options, and I welcome people, if there's something you like, I'll be happy to make it.
Is it true that you're considering naming the meatloaf after our city after our city
After
attorney?
Mr. Smith, it could be.
The Gary.
Stephanie said she was not gonna make it.
It sounds like you have a lot of interest in your business among
I love
council.
it.
So
I love it, yes.
I hope we're representative of the rest of the city, because it
Yes,
sounds like
so-
you'll do great. So.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thank you for that innovative approach,
Yeah, it really
and
is.
specifically because your mission behind it is key,
Yes.
and it's something that not only our city or society or state or country needs
Right.
to shift back to eating properly. So
Yes,
that's really
my
neat.
goal, just to give you more time at night to do what you need to do.
Easy.
So,
So
yes.
thank you.
We
So-
love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of first reading, please raise your hand.
think Gary's voting on this, too.
For loafing.
Wow. Number 2 under new business. This is a first reading of an ordinance to annex property at 102 Savannah Drive and 2118 Huron Drive and zone them residential single-family RS-15. By title, an ordinance to annex 2 properties to the city of Aiken. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Jarrett. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have before you 2 annexations tonight. The first one is 102 Savannah Drive. Both of these are in Gem Lakes, and they would both be rezoned to, annexed and zoned residential single-family RS-15, 102 Huron Drive and 2118 Huron Drive. And these annexations are before you on first reading this evening.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beano. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
I think it's interesting that both of these are houses in the neighborhood that when the annexation went on for 85% of the neighborhood, there were a few that decided not to. And they are not selling these properties. They don't have to come in the city. They want to come into the city because it's a better deal for them than being outside the city. So I think that needs to be mentioned.
Worth stating.
Thank you.
Worth stating. All right. All those in favor of first reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 3 under new business. This is a first reading of an ordinance to amend the budget for replacement vehicles. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the city of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second, sir.
Councilwoman Price? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Comments from staff?
Thank you. We do have 2 situations where purchases of vehicles were not included in the current year budget. The first one was due to a collision where a public safety vehicle was damaged beyond repair and not the fault of the officer. The second is an engineering and utilities vehicle that was ordered in fiscal year 2017-18. but was not received until this current fiscal year and was not included in the budget because we anticipated its arrival before June 30th of 18. And funds are available to replace the engineering and utilities vehicles. And with receiving the insurance proceeds and the appropriate amount of depreciation for the public safety vehicle, we have that budget adjustment before you for $29,600, and the other is a $46,100 fund transfer in to increase the vehicle expense. So we have both of these items before you tonight in the form of a budget amendment, first reading.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beanville. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor on first reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 4 under new business. This is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a deed of dedication for sanitary sewer utilities in Somerton Village from Beasley Development, Inc. By title, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a deed of dedication for utilities in Somerton Village from Beasley Development, Incorporated. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Jarrett. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have before us tonight Beasley Development Corporation requesting that the city take over the sanitary sewer utilities located in Somerton Village, located off of Talitha Church Road. This property was formerly known as Talitha Oaks, is new construction located in the county and provided sewer by the city as permitted by City Council ordinance in February 2016. Staff has reviewed the dedication and recommends acceptance of the lines, easements, and lift station. And before you tonight is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the deed of dedication for these sanitary sewer utilities in Somerton Village from Beasley Development Incorporated.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. You can step up and please say your name.
My name's Charles Harris, 938 Whiskey Road. Just going to ask, how much am I going to pay for this? It seems like the corporation is unloading something that's unprofitable to them, and the city is going to pick it up, the cost. How did the city expect to get them to pay for it so that I don't pay for it?
The user fees, they are going to be paying sewer fees just as a sewer customer would. City Council in February 2016 deliberated on this request via an ordinance and 2 public hearings, and typically when the city provides sewer service to a neighborhood or to a new development, once it's been installed and has been inspected and reviewed, the city then takes over the infrastructure. And again, the user fees, they will be paying double sewer rates since they are currently not in the city.
Okay. Yeah, I admit that I have not seen this before because it's the first time I've come to one of these in a long time.
Understood.
But there's nothing in the documentation that says what you just said. That just would have been easy if it was.
Well, this is kind of a
better to see it in writing than have you just tell me here.
Sure. Well, historically, that is, I thank you for that, because I think by implication, we accept infrastructure if it's part of our system, and by implication, we do bill the residents, and thank you for that, and that's something we could certainly put in.
Just implication doesn't necessarily mean contractual, so. From my background, if it's not in the contract, it's not there. So it just would have been nice to see it in writing. Thank you. Well noted.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay. Comments or questions from council?
To clarify, this is in the county, not in the city, and is not going to be annexed.
Well, there is no annexation agreement. Council did not require an annexation agreement as part of the conditions back in February 2016.
Really?
Yes.
That's, so there's nothing we can do about that?
Well, there is, I mean, we could still engage individual annexation agreements with the property owners.
That's like
but,
Jim Lake, what we went through with
yes,
Jim Lake.
and that was, I remember part of the discussion with that council. That was there were different members of council at the time, but correct, I think your thought process is it is easier to get it from the one developer that owns the entire acreage versus once it's parceled out.
Where's the city limits at this point on that section of Whiskey Road?
Right now, the city limits are along Whiskey Road at Talitha Church Road. It is not contiguous at this point, but
it's on the other side of the road?
It is on the eastern side of Whiskey Road.
By annexation, I just went to the Municipal Association study that Andrea and I attended. Yes, that would be contiguous if it's across the street.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
It should be annexed.
Yes, and again, that was as I remember, that was a subject of great discussion amongst the council at that time.
It should be a discussion at this point in time. I mean, we've made an agreement in 2016. We can't revisit that at this point?
If I can get involved, and I apologize, I don't recall the reasons why an annexation agreement was not mandated in 2016. I just don't recall what that discussion was about.
I remember the fire districts, and the former city manager representing Millington coming in and saying it would be a lawsuit.
Right. And so I don't, by now you have changed ownership of who could sign an annexation agreement, so the developer couldn't sign an annexation agreement for somebody he's already sold that property to.
There's already houses, and okay, all right, that would be a reason.
Right.
Exactly. The reason I bring that up is what we just talked about in Jim Lake. These people are realizing it's better to be in the city than outside the city, and we should promote that. It shouldn't be well, we're not going to
Are
do
they
it.
getting their water off of
The
individual?
water comes from New Ellington.
Okay, they're on New Ellington.
And that goes back even before 2016.
And I believe it's in New Ellington's fire district, if
Fire
I'm not mistaken also. Yes, it's kind of the edge of our water district, I believe, is South Meadows, which is adjacent to it. I believe there's a crash gate and a little emergency access road between the two. That was an issue, as I recall, from when we had the council meetings 3 years ago. South Meadows residents were concerned about access, that there not be a cut through South Meadows, so there isn't. But, it's at that dividing line where we provide the sewer, water, and fires provided by a different jurisdiction.
All right.
It's interesting.
All right, any other comments? All those in favor of the resolution, acceptance of a deed of dedication for the sanitary sewer in Somerton Village from Beasley Development, please raise your hand. That's unanimous.
We should have,
Item number 5 under new business is approval of a bid for walking track.
Mayor Osmond, I
Yes.
know we just voted for it, so I don't know how legal or if it's even possible, but, and the rest of council, I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I feel like we need to discuss this topic further.
I'd be in favor of that.
I don't know if that's allowed after.
Reconsideration.
Council could,
Bring it up for
on a majority vote, council could
Rescind.
pass a motion for reconsideration and then seek to go back, redo the ordinance that you just did, and instead of approving it, you could ask that it be continued to another meeting, and then whatever information you need to get from the city manager or city staff, just let them know that.
I don't think the subdivision's built out yet.
No, it
I don't
can't
know.
be.
I don't know.
No, I don't know, it's 20, 30, 40% built or what? Is that, I don't know,
No, it is not built out. I don't know to what percentage, but correct, there is additional room to build out.
so could we go to the developer and get those lots brought into the city under one thing?
I would suggest this, I mean, and Councilwoman Gregory.
If I could add just one other tidbit of information, as we're discussing this, I'm remembering things I'd forgotten. When you talk about this property being served by another fire district, okay?
Right.
In order to annex that property, we then have to go through a process where we figure out how much money the New Ellington Fire Department has invested in serving these properties, and there's a buyout process that you would have to pay them in order to annex them into the city.
And I
It's fairly
understand,
complicated, and it can be fairly expensive.
and I understand that process, but
Yep.
that's where I'm suggesting that we discuss it.
I would,
We don't understand.
I think there's enough,
There's a lot of moving parts.
I
in
think there's
this.
enough questions on council on this that I would certainly entertain a motion for reconsideration. And once that passed, we could certainly at that point make a motion
Yeah.
to continue this. And
you have
that
a
would be-
motion and a second. She made the motion and Ed seconded.
So there's a motion to reconsider by Councilwoman Gregory and a second.
Second.
Reconsideration does allow debate. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of reconsideration of this item, please raise your hand. Okay, and that's unanimous. Okay, so we now go back to the item, which is the approval for a bit of walking track at Generations Park for reconsideration. Is there a?
Nope.
No.
This is the Somerton.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
forgive me, yeah, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. So we are reconsidering the resolution authorizing the acceptance of a deed of dedication for sanitary sewer utilities in Somerton Village from Beasley Development, Inc. I would entertain a motion to continue this item so that we could have maybe a work session with staff or something to discuss this and find the status of it at this time. So is there a motion to continue?
I so move.
Okay, Councilwoman Diggs made the motion to continue. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilwoman Gregory, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of continuing this item, please raise your hand. Okay.
We will bring the information that we have and any additional discussions to council at a subsequent work session for additional action, or recommendation on additional action.
And I would like to say to Councilwoman Gregory, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it was on the mind of everyone here, and it was
Right.
appropriate, so.
And I appreciate Councilman Gerardo for your inquiries.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now, since I was jumping ahead already, let me ask this. Is there a motion for approval of bid for the walking track at Generations Park?
I so move.
Councilwoman Diggs made a motion. Is there a second?
Second, please.
Okay. Councilwoman Price, comments from staff?
Yes, we brought this to council earlier this year, subsequent to accepting a $100,000 grant from the Department of South Carolina Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism's Recreational Trails Program. And at council's request, we rebid it at for an 8-foot wide track. Low bid came in at $199,881, including contingency, and we bring to council approval of a bid. This bid with the funding, additional funding allocated from CPST2 and CPS for the Northside Park and Northside on landfill and Northside Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
Whenever I see the term value engineering, I interpret that we cut out some stuff. What are we not doing?
I'm going to have Joy Lester come up and describe the process for value engineering for this project.
I mean, I just want to know what we cut out. Because this whole park's been built on a value engineered thing and it hasn't worked so far.
Ms. Lester, good evening.
Good evening. What we cut out for value engineering is the deduct for the sand-based clay. So as part of the original bid for the specs for the project of Phase 1A, we used those exact same specs for this walking trail. And during the VE process of the original project, this is one of the things that we took out, because we will not have vehicles traveling across the sidewalks or the walking trails. We have designated parking for those, and so we took this out as well as the reinforcing fiber, and we're going to spoil the extra sand and mulch that's currently on the track on site. And so that savings brought us down to $187,460, and then we added contingency on top of that.
So we took out the reinforcing
Fiber.
out of it, and we're going to build it on a not perfect foundation.
Well, they'll come in and scrape it out and make it level with the existing, and then they will come in and
The original
form
plan,
it.
traffic was going to,
No. This was just an extra that they put in there just in case we had, vehicles or something, driving across it. But that is not the intent of
At all
these
anymore.
walking trails, no.
So it's still going to be a first class.
Yes, it will look exactly like what we already have there.
Okay, to play devil's advocate, how are you going to keep the cars in the trucks? Because the mayor and I just drove down one of the walking paths this
Shame
last
on
week.
you.
They cross Odell Weeks all the time.
Right.
yeah, they do, yeah.
Well, we did. We were looking at the drainage, but anyway.
It's okay, but not a continuous road, if you will.
Be a devil's advocate. We did that.
Joy,
Let's do that.
He's not taking you
what
anywhere
would
else.
it have cost if you left all that in there?
The additional cost, we would add back, the original bid was $187,460, and we valued engineer to $162,460.
So,
So that little bit of,
So in case Councilman Gerardo and Mayor Osmond want to drive on the track, we should probably add it back.
No, we don't have to.
No,
We
I'm
just
kidding.
were.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
The existing trails do not have you know, either one of these, the sand, clay base or the fiber in them currently. So, you know, we were just going to make it exactly the same as what we have now.
206 down to 199. Is that right?
Well, we would have had contingency added on that.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I think it's fine from the standpoint of, just put up a sign that says no vehicle traffic, and like you said, occasionally won't kill it. Yeah, well, that sends a signal to the mayor, because the mayor said I could go.
This vote's just
The
like
mayor said,
yours.
just go this
He's
way.
got no more votes.
And Joy, so 5 years from now, we'll have to do the entire track instead of a
Do
portion
I need to
of it.
recuse myself?
5 years from now, we'll have to do the entire track in terms of.
We weren't the first ones to do that either. It's pretty easy. It's a dirt
Telling on
road.
everybody else.
It's-
and so what is the longevity difference? Because it really is kind of an insignificant number, and if it's going to
Right.
add to the longevity of the structure.
It really doesn't add to longevity other than if we were going to have vehicular traffic on it.
Which we're
is
not.
that something
Which we're
that?
not, that's right.
Okay.
You don't think that big tractor cuts the grass, cutting across or riding up and down is going to be vehicle traffic?
And how the park will evolve eventually, and all the, you know,
Do we,
With the proper planning, we would not have vehicles on the walking trails.
do we have the same product in our other walking trails? On the base of
Well, this
Odell
is-
Weeks or
okay.
Citizens Park?
But it's two different types of surfacing. So we have asphalt at Odell Weeks and Citizens Park. This is concrete.
Okay.
And that's why, you know, that's an option that you can get put in it.
That lasts longer because it's concrete?
Did we even price it asphalt?
Yes, and it's comparable.
comparable trees.
Well, this will last, concrete will be much
trees, yeah.
more sustainable than, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
Any other discussion?
Value engineering. I'm doing it on the cheap.
Well, I mean, again, it may be over. Concrete probably would keep me from riding on it, because you're not gonna ride on it.
Nothing gonna keep you from.
Right now, it is what it is.
Would you cross it?
But I cross it?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Go across it?
He would.
No, not necessarily.
All right. All those in favor of the approval of the bid for the walking track at Generation Park, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, petitions and requests. Number one, this is a memorandum of agreement with South Carolina Department of Mental Health. I'm going to ask City Manager to tell us a little bit about that, and then I'll entertain a motion for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have been working with the Department of Mental Health's Community Crisis Response and Intervention and with our new public safety facility, we are recommending that we allow them to have designated office space at our new headquarters to collaborate on psychiatric crisis response in the community and to make appropriate referrals. And in return, the Department of Mental Health would agree to provide training and collaborate with public safety on emergent psychiatric crises, share relevant information with public safety, and serve as a clinical consultant for public safety. So for council consideration is a resolution authorizing the City of Aiken to enter into an agreement with the Department of Mental Health for office space at headquarters located at 834 Beaufort Street, Northeast.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Vidonder. Okay.
Beardo. Comments from audience? Any comments from council?
I have a question. This is going to be a space pro bono, is that right?
That is correct, in exchange for training and collaboration on response and so forth.
Okay.
Had we accounted for this when we designed the building?
We did not, but we've got, 70% of the building occupied, so we believe there is current adequate space. It's similar to other agreements, like we've got one with the Fire Academy, for example, at Station 5. They have a desk and office space there. In exchange, we get training from them. So it's similar to other agreements we've had with state agencies in the past.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor of the memorandum of agreement with South Carolina Department of Mental Health, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Number 200, petitions and requests. This is a request for banners in the downtown area for National Day of Prayer. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Girardeau. Thank you, Councilwoman Price, for the second.
Thank you so much. We do have the one request for the National Day of Prayer, and the request is to place 2 banners from April 25th through May 2nd of this year at the intersection of Park Avenue and Lawrence Street.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving down to information. Anything under issues and updates?
I would have a couple of quick reminders. March the 31st, Sunday the 31st at 2 p.m. is our ribbon cutting for the Public Safety Building at the new location at 834 Beaufort Street Northeast. And as I mentioned earlier, April the 24th, we will have the ribbon cutting for the Aitkin Senior and Youth Center at 841 Edgefield Avenue Northwest. And also just a reminder that the Statement of Economic Interest deadline to submit those is March 30th, and those must be submitted online by council members. And those are all the items for information I have at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Appreciate that. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. All those in favor, please stand up. And we're adjourned. Thank you for being here tonight.